Hello, loves. Welcome back to Between Ascension. We are going to be talking about quite a bit today on this podcast. But before we get started, I just want to shout out and give a big thank you to the Patreon members on TigeraGitana. Thank you so much for your support. As always, you guys are the ones that are really backing this podcast. So thank you so much for being there and supporting me through this journey. So today, we are going to be talking about the New Age to Jesus trend that we are kind of experiencing a lot in the spiritual community. It is currently raining where I'm at, so you're hearing a lot of the rain falling down from the window. I'm currently in the kitchen making one of my favorite breakfasts, which is an oatmeal recipe that has just been passed down through my mother's side of the family. And I really wanted to talk about you guys. I wanted to talk to you guys about this topic because I do feel that this topic is, it's really important to really look at why it's happening. And the reason I say that is because it's really easy to kind of be in a place where you're questioning someone's motives, especially if you don't know them, when it comes to spirituality, especially in this day and age. And I say that because currently in this kind of new era that we're in, and do not forget that we are in the age of Aquarius, we're seeing this focus on spirituality and the growth of spirituality and what it means to be spiritual. Spirituality including religions for those who need to still have and maintain their connections to religion. And not all religion, when I say religion, I don't want you guys to think I'm talking about Christianity only, but all forms of religion. There's a lot of us in the community, in our generation as well, who are tapping into their past and their beliefs of their ancestors. And while that it doesn't have to include Christianity, it does for many people. And so Christianity, well, I think I should just start with my experience with Christianity from the get-go. I grew up in a Christian family, Pentecostal actually, but also Catholic. So, two sides of different equations. If you know anything about Christianity, you know that both of those sides do not like each other and they believe very opposite things. And for the most part, in the Dominican Republic, most people are Catholic. There's a higher percentage of people who are Catholic than like Pentecostal Christian. There's different types of Christian as well. So when people say Christian, a lot of the time, if you're talking to a Pentecostal, it'll be like, I'm not that type of Christian. I'm not no Jehovah's Witness. I'm not this and that. There's definitely different types of Christian. So it is kind of weird to lump them in together because I know how they react to when they're lumped in together in that way. They don't like to be seen as, okay, I'm Christian, but you're comparing me to Catholic. No, that's something else. That's a whole nother area. And so when it comes to practices and working with the Bible, working with the saints and stuff like that, you don't really do that at all when it comes to being Christian as per looking through it through a more, I feel like it's a more strict lens. Is the way that I kind of grew up learning about it. It's definitely a more strict lens if you're like Pentecostal. If you're Catholic, you're definitely more open to the saints. You're a little bit more open to working with other spirits in that kind of way. You're doing a lot more ritualistic things as well in the church. So having my background be split in those two ways was very interesting because I got to learn a lot about the perspectives and views of my family, of some who are now my ancestors, and how they felt about connecting to God, the divine. And so I grew up from a very young age. Since I was a baby, I grew up in the church. And while it was definitely annoying to me because I personally got bored very, very quickly in church, for just really obvious reasons. And if it's not obvious to you, it's honestly because, and I'll break that down in a second actually, but I would get bored really, really, really early on. I read the Bible at a very early age because my mom, it was always like kind of said in my house that like, my mom read the Bible like a million times, from back to front. And that's something that like, the funny thing about it is that most Christians don't actually do. They don't actually read the Bible from, cover to cover. They just read certain passages. And then when they're in church, certain passages get brought up. And the Bible tends to be like, especially in a Christian setting with when you're going to church and you're getting a sermon or something, it's almost like a ton of topics. It's a list of topics that you can talk about because you can literally pick any verse and just start a whole sermon about it. And so the possibilities tend to be a little bit endless when you can go, you can say one sermon one year, then go do a ton of sermons later, and then come back to that same sermon a year later as if it's like a brand new kind of knowledge of sorts. And so I got really bored of going to church very quickly at a very, very young age because I just couldn't connect to Jesus himself. I have to be completely honest with you guys from the get-go about this. This has to do with because of past life work that personally I have to do in that I've had to do as well in this life, but it's also because in this lifetime I'm tied karmically to a past life in ancient Egypt, Kemet, for those who know its true origins. And so when we're talking about that connection and me having that connection on just historically with my spirit, with my soul being tied to ancient Egypt in this way, I couldn't for the life of me connect at any point in my journey through going to church. You guys know how many churches I've been to. You have no idea how many churches I've been to. You have no idea. Like, my experience going to the church has been very frustrating, because I would go in and I would feel nothing. And there would be spaces where I felt light energy, like it was like holy places. I still feel that way when I go to some churches. Like if I'm gonna go collect holy water or anything like that, I still feel like some places being sacred spaces, but I never felt Jesus himself. I've never felt him ever in my life, and I never recognized him as the divine, like the end all be all, either, because it just didn't feel it. I could never feel him. And I've asked like a million times. I was like, okay, well, I grew up in this kind of environment. There had to be a reason why I grew up in this type of environment. So I would kind of try to dive in a little bit deeper and try to connect and try to seek that kind of connection that everybody's just like, oh, well, God is love. Oh, we're this and that. And oh, we're that and that. And I'm like, okay, I get that you're saying that, but I would love to feel that so I can understand why you are testifying with it with such ferocity. And this is not trying to knock anybody who believes in God by any capacity, but the reason why I'm mentioning my experience with religion and my experience with Christianity is because when it comes to understanding why people are going back to God or Jesus, especially when they're trying to call it like, oh, this is a new age situation, I don't consider what I practice to be new age, because a lot of what I practice is just really ancient practices. They're not something new. They're not something that has to be, it's like it's created now. Like, I understand that oracle cards and stuff like that is very modern for, in that extent. But for the most part, a lot of the practices that I do, and especially coming from my ancestors and the work that they were doing, is very ancient work. And it predates a lot. There's stuff that you can say doesn't predate the whole Jesus thing, and I really have always hated that we have decided to mark time in the age of like Jesus. Like, I've always hated that because there's so much stuff that predates him even being mentioned anywhere, and the way that Christians excuse it is like, oh well, he created and Adam and Eve and all the stuff, and he just didn't come in later into our presence. I'm like, okay, well, y'all missed a whole bunch of history within that kind of nonsense. You guys missed a whole bunch of other gods existing. You guys missed a whole bunch of other cultures that existed before Jesus even came into the picture. Jesus, which is not even his real name because the J did not exist in that language at the time. And so the way that it has evolved, the way that Christianity has evolved, has been a huge ripoff. Personally, it's my opinion. It has been a huge ripoff of other religions. And it's been a kind of a mockery and a mimicry of what we understand it to be today. And I think the reason why I can never connect with Jesus in that way, and trust me, I've tried, I've prayed on it, and it's very easy for me to connect with spirit, especially if I'm calling one on, just because I've worked with so many different ones over the course of so many lifetimes. It's very easy for me to just connect with spirit and have that kind of relationship where I can say, hey, I need you right now. Hey, you know how many times, even the angels, for example, you know how many times I've called in the angels and they just show up for me like on an instantaneous basis, but I've called Jesus like a million times and he has never in a million years showed up for me in any capacity. Do you have any idea? And you can literally, I can already hear Christians arguing, well, he sent the angels to go help you. I'm like, no. That's not what it is, because I didn't call in the angels to help me. I was trying to call you. When you're trying to answer a phone call, like if I'm trying to call somebody and their child picks up, I wasn't trying to talk to their child. I was trying to talk to the source. Okay. That's the way I personally see it. And if you are on that almighty level, because especially when you look at all of these ancient religions, which completely get dismissed by Christianity, which is one of the things that I hate about Christianity, that they just completely it has such a heavy taste of oppression, because somebody could have literally been born into a whole other culture somewhere, just being completely unbothered by what the hell you believe and what the hell you think. And Christians think that it is 1000% okay to go up in that area of the world where this person is just living their life, going about their day and praying to whoever they're praying and worshiping to whoever they're praying, just because that's traditionally what they were taught. And the way that they communicate and work with the Creator is in a completely different way. And Christians want to just be going out there and be like, no, you're wrong. You need to pray over here because you're doing it wrong. These demons you've been praying to. Like, the fact that they go into your demon worshiping when all your life you've just believed that this is what this is what your life is, this is what you've been doing, is ridiculous. It's very oppressive. It is very, oh my God, it has so much problems from the get-go. And this is one of the reasons why Christianity kind of has a huge taste of being colonizing when it comes to how we treat others and how we use colonization in the past, historically speaking, to really completely wreck different cultures and mess up the history and try to literally insert our viewpoints into somebody else's mind. And this is why spirituality is as kind of free as it can be, because spirituality still includes religion. And I want you guys to understand that when you're talking about, oh, I'm spiritual, I just practice spirituality includes religion. 1000%. 1000% includes religion in there. Every type of religion. It's just the title that gets kind of bracketed underneath. It's like a web where you can link it to everything, but it's still at the center, it's still spirituality. So when we're looking at religion itself, and this is something that I've always personally said, You can literally quote me back from when I was a kid saying this. I've always said this. I've said from the get-go, there are people out there that need religion, and they need it because they need something to believe in. They need to put like a name, of a face to it. They need to put have a direct kind of rule book. That's where the Bible comes in. They need to have that structure. And the reason why they need that is because they lack it. They lack it within their own personal lives. So they connect themselves to having this strictness and this belief in these rules that they must then stick to so they can maintain order within the chaos in their lives. And that has levels, okay? It has a magnitude of levels to it. What I just said has levels because it applies to all of us. It applies through religion and it applies spiritually. And this applies as well when somebody's getting initiated into a religion. It's the same process. You are now entering a stage where you now have to follow certain rules. You have to follow it very strictly. You have to work with spirits in a different way. You have to have space and create sacred space for spirit in this way. There are people that need that. There are people that need to have that sense of control. Why? Because they lack it. There's a reason why religion is very particularly strict and particularly controlling. It's not necessary. It doesn't have to be a bad thing that is controlling. I mean, we've seen it used as in bad ways. The controlling part, we've seen it used in a bad way. But for the most part, when you're looking at religion, when you're looking at what it's supposed to do, what it is meant to do, it's almost like training wheels. It's like you're gonna have these wheels with you. You're gonna have the support with you through your life, so you feel supported, so you feel like you're guided, so you feel like you are connected to source. And so when we talk about why people are kind of going back to Jesus, and like from New Age to Jesus, we see on a statistic level that our generation kind of was going through moments of questioning, and it still is. There's still people being awakened and going through the journey in many ways. But a lot of, if you look at the statistics, our generation has been put in a kind of phase where it has to question what source is. It has to question their own spiritual practices. It has to question their own spiritual journey. It has to go through a phase of understanding. And so right now it's really about discovery, and that's depending on which part of your journey you've been in. It's really about discovery. It's really about seeking knowledge, understanding your own power as well, which is one of the big, beautiful things that spirituality gives you, is understanding your own power, understanding spirit's power, and the gods and goddesses and the deities, yes, and the orishas, yes, understanding their power, but understanding how they work through you, understanding your own personal power, understanding how to tap into that power, and all of the practices that come from spirituality and just balancing yourself up. And at the end of the day, I feel like the biggest blessing that spirituality gives you is that you learn how to heal yourself. And a lot of the practices and the tools that we used in spirituality ultimately help you heal yourself, versus you praying to somebody else to heal you. You are allowing yourself to work with spirit to heal you, and you're learning different things, whether in whatever kind of medium that you're using, you're learning different things to help you heal yourself at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that comes out of spirituality itself. I came into spirituality obviously at a very young age, because I already told you guys religion and spirituality are kind of they come in together in that way. But when I started going through the questioning, that's when I had access to a library. I had access to other ways of learning the other truths that were out there. There's a curiosity that came straight into my face. And one of the big things that I connected to from a very young age was Egypt. And I already told you guys that I have this past life connection where I am just tied in this lifetime that I have to heal from my Egyptian past life, my Kemetic past life. And so Egypt is a huge, I don't want to call, I want to call it a trigger, I guess, because that's like the easiest way for me to explain it. But it's not a trigger in a bad way. It's almost like an awakening kind of thing. Because the second, because I was born in the Dominican Republic. And the second I started to have access to world knowledge and understood where I was in the world on a map, and understood like where everything else was and some of the history, because I've always been a history nut. I love studying history because I always believe that when you know your history, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. So if knowing and understanding history and understanding the problems, the things that occurred, it's very important to me. And this is why past life work is also very important to me, because it's very healing when you understand something that you did in the past and something that happened to you and you can heal your way out of it. It's a beautiful process for your spirit and for your soul. So history, the sense of history is really important to me. And when I started just going in and studying, I immediately, my whole entire soul and spirit was connected to all of the Kemetic gods, all of the land itself. It's been calling me to go there physically for years, even though I've astral traveled there and I've had a lot of experiences. My experience where that particular land is calling me has been completely divine. It's been beautiful and amazing. And I know it will be divine timing when I do go there. But when I'm talking about like feeling that sense of just enlightening and that connection and that divinity, I've always felt that with Egypt, with ancient Kemet. That's where I connected that to. And it was also always very sacred to me in that way. And I always connected with every single one of the gods. And that's because of that past life, because my soul knows where the truth lies. And in this case, for me particularly, it predates Christianity. And so when somebody's trying to sell me, including my own family, because my father's a pastor, my mom is a pastor, my dad has 5 churches in DR. My mom is an author. I have this huge Christian, almost mini dynasty in many ways. And when I'm looking at myself, I'm I can't connect to any of this. And growing up in a house full of kind of this mindset, this particular mindset of Christianity, and having had arguments and discussions and questioning the faith. You know how many times I've questioned the faith to my parents? You have no idea. And I always win. I always win the argument because they can never explain everything. And that's kind of one of the problems. When I was younger, I remember, I believe I was around 8 years old. And I was having a discussion with 3 guys from the church. These are 3 grown men arguing with a child about Jesus. and I won because at one point when I was asking the question, I remember I asked, one of the questions I asked, I said, why is it that the Bible doesn't mention anything about the universe, the stars, the other planets? Why doesn't it mention that? Because it makes it seem very limiting, and it's really important because we do use all of these other things. It doesn't talk about where we are and who we are. It just talks about us as we're the only ones here. And the fact that there's other things that we can see past the earth and that is not talked about in this book of creation kind of thing, I was very curious about, because I was I don't understand why it doesn't talk about that. There's more out there, which means that there's more knowledge out there that is not being talked about. You want me to follow the Bible and think that this is the only mindset I should have, when the universe itself and the world itself, I can look up to the skies and see that it goes somewhere else. And if it can go somewhere else, then why should I listen to anything you're saying? And literally one of my mom's friends, who I called my brother at the time because I like pretty much grew up with him being around, he's Christian as well. He literally looked at me and he's like, you shouldn't even be questioning this stuff and stuff. You shouldn't even be, it's just not important for you to know. And the second he said that, I knew that I won the argument, because he couldn't answer my question, but also because he didn't know the answer to the question. And also because he couldn't know the answer to the question because his mind is limited to what knowledge he then is capable of having through the lens of Christianity. Because having living through being a Christian is a lens. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've been quoted in Bible verses. It's literally been my whole entire life, and it's one of the most annoying things that Christians do. And honestly, the second that you start pointing out different facts to them is the second that they will start throwing Bible verses at you, and it's just so irritating, because it's like, okay, but God is love, but okay, but he also said he was war, so which one is it? Like, I need some answers. And coming at it from that young of an age, I want you guys to understand that when you're young, okay, when you're that young, you are very flexible to bending your mindset to the way people believe. So your root within this lifetime becomes that which you have kind of taken in, that which has watered you. And if you've just been watered down, like, hey, Jesus is God and all of the stuff since you were young, you will always have those roots there. And this is obviously applies to me as well, because I've had those roots. However, from the inception of my life, when I could understand for myself and see and learn, because I've always been a book nut. I've always read. I've always sought more knowledge. I've always it's almost like I feel like my soul, when I was younger, I felt like my soul was trying to catch up with what I've missed from my past lifetime. And I was just trying to catch up with what has changed, what has happened. And that's the way personally that I see it. But it's kind of like going through the motions of trying to figure out what happened, and also trying to understand why other people believe this. And I understood very young, and that's when I stopped arguing. After that, I had that situation with I will call him my brother, because at the time I did call him my brother. Once I had that situation with my brother at that time, I literally took a step back, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to argue with people anymore. I still ended up arguing with my parents here and there, because like my dad has certain perspectives, and my mom has certain perspectives. My mom is always a funner one to argue with, because she knows more about the Bible anyway. My mom, it's more strict with the Bible in that way, where she's hella intuitive, because she's a Cancer, obviously. She's hella intuitive. We do a lot of different work together, especially when it comes to dream work, but in also understanding. She could walk into any room and tell you who she's not about to sit next to and why she's about to leave. But my dad, he's one of the ones who likes to just throw Bible verses around. He doesn't understand the Bible as deep as my mother will. And I've understood that since the get-go, because my dad, who is a Libra, likes to be a little bit more showy with the Bible. And I feel like a lot of males in the religion, in the first place, they do the same thing. They're very in-your-face, showy, like macho man religion, where they want to just shove it in your face, shove Bible verses in your face, and you got to just take it. They kind of like to do that so often. I prefer listening to some of the women's perspectives if I'm going to argue with anybody, even though I've argued with some women that are like completely psycho. I remember one of the experiences I had, I'm trying to remember the story like properly, but the way, like, basically I was talking to my parents about how not being part of the religion is viewed as you have demons and you're evil and stuff like that, and you just have different perspectives, and that if you don't like or love God or believe in him, you're just seen as evil, and you're just seen as you don't deserve to even, to an extent, almost even be alive, because it's just like you're disobeying him. He gave you the choice to follow him, and you're choosing the other thing, so you shouldn't even, you're wasting time, you're doing all this kind of stuff. And I remember this lady who came to see my parents at the time, she like walked in randomly into the conversation, and she just started calling me like that. She just started saying that I had demons, and my mom looked at her and she was just like, no. And it was like, It was like the funniest thing because it's like in that moment I watched my mom having to pick between her faith and her daughter, and it was just so funny because she was just like, no. Granted, I know most of you have never met me in person, but no, I am not evil. It is really stupid to have to say that, but this lady was literally like, oh, you don't, like, yeah, but if you don't believe, if you don't understand, if you call Jesus, if you question him, that's just the demons talking, you're just full of demons. And I was laughing so bad, I was like, Mom, I got demons. I was screaming, I was like, I got demons, yes. You know what it's like to scream, I have demons to both your parents who are both pastors. It's hilarious. It is very entertaining. I highly recommend you do it to your parents just for fun. But it was really funny because both of my parents had to kind of shut up at that point, and I had to be like, your logic. I literally shut her down too because she wasn't making any goddamn sense. But it was really interesting to me that the viewpoint is, you don't agree with me, you got demons, that's the demons talking. Oh, you have something to say that goes against what I believe, that's the demons talking. Oh, it's just like this, you can't have any other opinion, or that's the demons talking. Automatically my body, my spirit, my soul, which as per your own Bible says that I am like God. So what you're just saying, that me as God has just gotten taken over by demons and it's speaking through me right now. So the logic doesn't make any sense. And honestly, trying to argue with me about Christianity is like one of the most foolish things anybody can do, because I can literally shut down everything at this point. At this point, I can shut that whole thing down. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating as someone who at the time, but like, this actually happened when I was like around 19. So that was actually a really funny experience for me. But going through kind of these motions where you have these experiences, having a background in religion, no matter what it is. And I'm not saying, I didn't want to do this podcast to kind of like sway anybody left and right or anything like that. You believe whatever the hell you need to connect to and believe to. I already explained to you, I believe personally that people do need to, there are some people out there that do not have self-control, okay? I personally have a lot of self-control, which is why I let the knowledge and my spirit guide me to where I am today and to the understanding of who I am today. That is not to knock anybody down. If your experience has been that you need to connect to that, to source through Jesus, who I can't even explain my relationship to him because it's really non-existent in many ways. And I think as of late, I think this year, I've been trying to do a lot more forgiveness work towards him itself, because I feel like I have personally a lot of resentment towards Jesus in the way that I just feel like so much harm has been done under his name, and that he's allowed that. And all of the things that have happened that he has allowed under his name, like I just cannot, it's really hard for me to forgive him for that. It just is. It's really hard for me to forgive him for that, because the spirits and the gods that I work with, if anybody even tried to do that under their name, it's kind of like, I know that ultimately there's different ways to work with spirit. There's different spirits that you can work with as well. Even, for example, Santa Muerte, who I personally know there's people that work with her darker aspects, which, I mean, it's totally fine if that's what your prerogative is, if that's what you need to do. I mean, that's you. That's what you're doing. Not everybody works with her in that same way, but she does have a reputation of working with people. Like, I know she gets a whole bunch of rep, especially in the news. People demonize Santa Muerte a lot because she shows up and works with people who are like in the drug cartels and stuff like that, and she shows up for them. But I really wish people would understand at the end of the day that death shows up for everyone. I'm going to repeat that. Death shows up for everyone. Death is imminent. It has to occur. So the fact that people kind of demonize her and just say, oh, look, she's bad. She's working with drug dealers. She's doing this. She's protecting these people. She's evil. She's all this stuff. I'm like, death shows up for everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. Death itself, she is death embodied. So you can't dismiss her being in either side of things. And this is why I understand the light and the darkness it's like the yin and yang-ish of spirituality. And working with and people who work with demons and people who work with negative spirits and stuff like that, I understand their perspective. I understand their side. It has to exist. I need everybody in the world to understand that the reason why Archangel Michael has dominion over demons is because demons exist. And so if you take the dominion over demons away, then he has nothing to protect. So you have to kind of understand that there has to be bad where there is good. There has to be both sides. Some people's spirit, some people's soul is just tied to doing darker work. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're killing people, hey, that's on you. But there's nothing wrong with that on your viewpoint. You know what I mean? And this goes hand in hand with different types of spirituality, different types of things that are done. I know there's some witches and brujas that don't agree with animal sacrifices, but guess what? They've been done since ancient times. And the reason why they're so powerful to do in the first place, and I've mentioned this before when I did my breakdown of doing egg cleansings, is because an animal still that has a soul. You were sacrificing a soul. And if you ever want to trace that kind of thing back, you can go into the Akashic records and ask, have I ever been sacrificed before for any type of ritual? Am I still tied to that energy? Am I still tied to the birth of that creation? You can still ask, because a lot of listen, every time an animal is sacrificed for a reason, you are putting in the energy of someone's soul, just in an animal form, someone's soul, to empower and offer that energy to spirit in that way. And that can go both good and bad, whether you're offering to a demon or you're offering to a spirit that just does darker work, or you're doing it in a positive way. And I've seen it done both ways. So spirituality is very complex. It's not just one phase. There's never going to be just one phase to spirituality, because again, it brings in every religion in this world. But how you connect to source and what your beliefs are very, it's like your journey to take. Ultimately, how you come back to that is your journey to take. In this lifetime, you might have to connect to source in whatever way you're called to. But when it comes to religion, our generation, statistically, we have stopped going to church. We have started questioning. We have started looking at other ways to heal ourselves, to understand. We're seeking for knowledge, and it's really sad that there's a lot of people out there that are seeking for knowledge and can't find it because of this whole Christianity is the only way mindset that we have now. It really, really, really sucks that people did not get to grow up in their own kind of culture where they can learn more about and in depth about what their ancestors believed in and where they come from. And even if somebody is mixed, and even if somebody has two different types of cultures, understanding both and what they both believed in. I just think that is such an important thing to teach someone who might not know, just so they can understand what's running through their blood, because ultimately you will always have those ancestors who see you praying and reading the Bible and stuff, who are just hating that, because when they were alive, they went through a whole traumatic experience from it. And so, because religion and Christianity was beaten into people, period. And I know this is something that runs in my family line very deeply, because I'm Dominican and we had slaves in our country. And it's the history of how Christianity got beaten into our country and our countries, okay? It's just really, really, really sad. It's really sad. It's really frustrating, and it makes it hard to connect and say, and when you're looking back at it in that viewpoint, you're like, oh my God, but this got beaten into my ancestors, and this is love to get beaten down with this truth that you're trying to say is true, that I need to follow. This is love. Okay. And then you can, if they want to defend it and throw a Bible verse in and be like, well, God is love and war, I had to war myself into your head and beat you down with information so you could believe. That's like a really, really abusive way of trying to make people believe what you do and agree with you, and wholeheartedly and within their hearts start throwing Bible verses at you because they believe in it. So it's definitely something that when I see it happen, as far as a new age to Jesus kind of trend that's happening, I feel like there are people out there, again, that will always kind of need religion in whatever way that they need to experience it. They will always need religion. They always need a structure because they don't, again, I will repeat it. They lack self-control. Every religion teaches you self-control. That is literally in every single one. You can look at every single religion in the world and they all teach you self-control, especially when you're ascending as any type of master, or ascending as a shaman or a high priestess or anything like that. I can tell you this because in past lives, which I've already seen and know about, I was already those things. I've experienced being a high priestess. I've experienced being a shaman. I've experienced all of these levels of spiritual growth through past lives. This is why in this lifetime, every time I've asked, I was like, hey, Spirit, do you guys want me to get initiated? You know, I've gotten multiple readings because people always ask me like, oh my God, wait, are you even initiated? Because people do that. That's a really annoying thing that people do in the spiritual community, that they automatically want to kind of dismiss you if you're not on that level. Not everybody needs to be initiated. And Spirit has specifically told me, not only through me, but through other people, other readers and diviners who have said, no, you don't need it. They want you to stay open. No, you don't need it. And this literally, they say the same exact thing without me even telling them what the other person said. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm fine. I'm chill, because they come to me anyway. I don't need to sit here, go through a whole entire process just to have their connection, because I personally have a lot of self-control, and self-control is the thing that you need in order to have a very successful life, but also to work with Spirit on a regular basis. You do need to have self-control, because it tells you a lot about how you organize the chaos in your life. It has to do with maintaining control. Instead of running and going through Spirit to say, okay, I'm out of control, can you help me? I'm praying. You maintaining the control within your life. You controlling yourself. You controlling your choices, you having discernment, all of that goes hand in hand with what religion teaches you in the first place. So if you already learned the thing, you don't need to go through it again. You can partake in it. If your spirit is being called to get initiated, hey, by all means, do what you need to do. But it's not necessarily necessary for everyone to go through that experience. And that's why when I see other people partaking in any type of religion or any type of thing, I'm like, well, that's great. That's great that they are, they do that. And I do hope and wish that they evolve through their best through them. I always send them the most positive intentions, even if it's Christianity, even though I know Christianity today gets used, especially by the Republican Party, gets used in a huge, disgusting way, in a huge controlling way. And it's very frustrating to see. And a lot of the time, like if someone says that they're a Christian, I roll my goddamn eyes. But I understand that they need to do that. I can't say that I respect fake Christians, though, the ones that don't go to church or anything but say they're Christian and have like the smallest belief in God, and then just use religious views to control other people, especially in politics. I can't say I respect that, and I can't say that I wish them any type of well, because that's just using religion for your gains, okay, and for your manipulation, and I don't think that's fair. So there's like so much problematic stuff that comes out of spirituality and religion in that capacity where I can't condone it. I just can't. There is evolution that's happening through our generation. It just is what it is. This is the age of Aquarius. It is what it is. However, we do need to learn from our past. We do need to understand the wounds from our past. We do need to understand the pains from our past. And I do think that understanding why people have this new age to Jesus kind of trend has to do a lot with them and their journey and what they experience and their perspectives, their understanding, whether it's a limited perspective or a limiting perspective that got implanted for a long time ago, or it's literally the intentions of those people in the past who implanted this idea that everything else but what they believe is right. And so you have to kind of at some point let people journey in whatever it is that they want to do, and just take it with a grain of salt, even if those people who are, I guess, spiritual influencers have like helped you in any capacity, or you felt connected to them in some ways. I think intuitively we all know something can be really like a little off about some people, and that's because all areas of someone's spirit is not going to vibe with us. We can connect with someone and be like, oh my god, that person, I totally get with them, but how do you feel about also Jesus? Like, and I want you guys to really that I don't get about this person either. That's totally fine. We're not supposed to know everything. If you wanted to do this as an ancestor meditation, but the second someone makes that shift and says, oh, tarot's evil, I was doing the wrong thing, I was getting manipulated by demons and all this stuff. That's kind of when you have to kind of realize that when you listen, maybe their experience in this life needs to be more simplified. The things you've done, because spirituality is something that it is ruled by Neptune. Okay, it is ruled by that Pisces energy, and so you have to understand that you will never fully understand every aspect of spirituality, every aspect of this world. You will never truly understand why all animal sacrifices are done. You will never truly understand the process of it, the way it happens, the way it's taught, the history behind it. You can't always get to the full root of the problem, and so you can never understand someone's motives. There are people out there that use religion just to control other people because they are controlling people. Same in the same way that people like and get into BDSM because they want to be sexually controlled. There are people who get off controlling other people and dictating other people. That's just who they are. And so when they get into these kind of fields of, oh, I am a spiritual leader, oh, I am leading a whole bunch of people, oh, I'm gaining gains from those people as well, because a lot of it has to do with a monetary gain. And a lot of people seeing the spiritual community, especially because so many of our generation are seeking and trying to learn more through a spiritual lens. There are people who monetize it. There are people who seek to monetize it and seek to get a see it as more of a paycheck than anything else. And you're going to see that coming out throughout the years, especially from the white people within the community. And I'm not trying to knock anybody who is white, who is spiritual, who's listening to this in that way. It's just that as far as your historical ancestry goes, you guys have an act for using religion and spirituality to control the masses, and Christianity is the biggest example of that. So nobody can say I'm wrong. I don't care. It just is a fact. You guys are the ones, traditionally speaking, and you can even look at this through the lens of studying history and the way museums are run. You guys like to have a controlled viewpoint of what things mean. You guys like to study other cultures and pick and choose what you want to show, and then narrate what is being said and show it off to everybody else as if it was your discovery, when it was actually somebody else's history that was stolen from somebody else. And you have to understand that that is the viewpoint that many people within the spiritual community have of white witches and of those who are Caucasian and are coming into the spiritual community with intention to make financial gains, because you will find a way. There's ways, especially because a lot of the time when it comes to indigenous women or people of color or Black people, Africans, when it comes to spirituality, if you look at the ancient times, we were actually very open into sharing and connecting, and we didn't really kind of go into type of like, anger fueled or trying to kill people over like them coming in our space in that way. We were always very open. This is one of the facts that is known about ancient Kemet. People from all over the world would come and learn from everybody. They would just come and learn and study the culture, and study our beliefs, and study of our history and all these type of things. And so when you talk about what can be taken from spirituality, and what you can learn. There are some that are going to look at spirituality as a way to make gains. And those are the people that know how to monetize things. And there's some people that are going to come in to heal themselves. And those are the people that are going to focus on their healing. There's certain people that are going to go through hell and back. And then they will be called to teach others how to get from hell and back to yourself. And that will happen. But at the end of the day, the people who are the ones that don't really care to monetize things or care to kind of put a kind of dollar amount or any type of things, or just kind of just go through the beliefs and live a happy life, are the people who are of color. And that's always what happens. Religion and Christianity itself is very monetized, and you can see that a lot in the super churches and how much money the pastors make in a year. I'm telling you, a lot of the people like control. That's just what it is. A lot of people get off on it. And so when it comes to spirituality itself, there comes a point where you do have to take highlight the knowledge versus the monetary funds out of it. But the money is also very important, especially for Black, African, and people of color, indigenous people of color. It is very important because a lot of our traditions and a lot of our history and beliefs and practices have been taken by white people to monetize. And it's like everybody still wants to come to us and say, oh, what else can we kind of sell? What else can we teach? What else can we take from you guys to sell? It's really like almost a marketplace where we're not selling anything. We're just trying to be happy. We're trying to just live our lives. We're trying to help people. So now we're in a position where we do have to add an energy exchange value for us using our energy to help other people. And that's just like what it is in this lifetime. That's just what it is in the culture that we're in today. That's just what it is. But I do not fully trust a lot of the intentions from a lot of people within the community in that capacity as well. And so looking at religion and looking at where we're at now, we have to reflect on what our roots are, where your traumas are, why you, and especially if you are like curious or you've been thinking about Jesus, or you're having like any type of awakening. I know there's a lot of like spiritual leaders that have kind of gone through it, that like, went from kind of did a whole 180, and that's totally fine. That's their experiences. I don't take any of their experiences to heart to any capacity. I know Dorian Virtue was one of the big names that like went back to Jesus, and she like denounced all her oracle cards and stuff. It was like it was just like this hilarious kind of show. And I actually recently read her new book that she put out, where she just kind of like did this whole apology to the Christian community for all the work that she did within the quote unquote new age community. And I was just laughing the whole time because I thought it was so funny. And because it really is pretty hilarious to me. And I just think that, especially for them, it's not surprising that they always go back to Christianity, because a lot of white people it's harder for them to connect to their own culture. And because their culture has been very embedded within Christianity, historically speaking, especially within the past centuries, that's all they have to that's like kind of almost all they have to go back into. And so when you look at people who are of color who go back to Christianity, you have to still understand that the wounds of the past and the things that they were taught are still there. And so if their innocence has been taken from the past and has been put in this place where they are now, they only feel safe within this area of spirituality, within only thinking that Jesus is the divine, within only think that Jesus is the only God, and Bible versing everybody, then that's their experience. That's where they feel innocence. That's where their inner child lies. That's where they feel their comfort, because they can't see or have any viewpoint that anybody else can believe anything else. It is almost like you erase it. You're only thinking about yourself and your perspective, and your historical intentions that have been embedded within your blood, within your DNA, within your family, that teaches you that what you believed before was wrong, and what you need to believe is more important. And it's really sad that those intentions are still like manifesting within those people, and they're still awakening within those people. And I'm not surprised that this happens, but I'm also not taking it personally. And I understand why people would get, mad about somebody going through a whole, oh, New Age is Jesus, New Age is evil, all this stuff is evil. It was demons. Like, I'm telling you, it's pretty, to me, it's really kind of hilarious. But I understand that their own spirit is just going through a transition. And if that's how they need to, move in their lives, then that's how they need to move. I'm not taking it personally, because I know who the hell I am. And at the end of the day, it's about knowing who the hell you are. If you identify yourself through other spiritual leaders, then you're losing yourself within them, and you need to come back to yourself. The purpose of somebody being a spiritual leader is to remind you of who the F you fucking are. And so please make sure that you keep that mindset within yourself. Always remember who you are. And even if you end up going back to Jesus too, that's totally fine. Just as long as you remember who you are, you remember what you need, you remember what your spirit needs, and you understand that this is what is right for you. This is what your spirit needs ultimately for you. And for those who get mad about, like other people going in a different path, that's not your business, quite frankly. It's really not your business. They made it your business because they grew a platform and, decided to teach others and take information the same way that, white people take information, and they sell it to other people in that same way. You have to understand that those habits from those people who oppressed everybody else at the time, those habits are still very embedded there. And so when you have people who show up in the community and they rise up to the occasion, and they grow a really big following, because they, again, and it's always the people that focus on the love and light BS that I notice is always the people that focus on the love and light part. And every time I hear someone just focusing on the love and light anything, I always kind of, give them a little bit of the side eye, because it's never going to be love and light. And this is coming from a person who works with the light more than anything. But at the same time, I've had to do a lot of work in the dark. That's just a fact of the matter. You have to do a lot of work, a lot of healing, a lot in the dark, those dark spaces. And it's not always one of the truth that I've discovered is that it's never going to be love and light, everything. It's just not a reality that is true. That's why the whole yin and yang symbol is the dark and the light in balance. It's an equal importance of balance. So the people that are always looking at love and light look to Jesus and say, oh my God, he's just love and he's just light. Granted, he's also said he's the God of war, but hey, that's very light apparently. So you have to understand that those are the people that are going to want to look at him in one face when he is many. And even the Bible teaches you a lot of these truths about that type of mentality too. But again, you're always people look at Jesus as their lover. And I've seen people marry and go through marrying rituals to God in churches and stuff. Like they see him as their lover. They love him. They praise him. They love him. They worship. And that mentality is very, very weird, because a lot of those people also swear they love Jesus more than they will ever love themselves. And that is very sad. And so don't feel bad or try not to, because it really is none of your business. But if you felt a little bit deceived by others, understand that that's just a lot of the time there are people out there that's that Neptunian energy, because Neptune will always make spirituality feel very mysterious, very unknown, very elusive. It just will always feel that way. Spirituality will always have that, because that's where the magic comes in. The magic always lies in the unknown. And so you have to respect it. You have to pull yourself back and not get caught up in thinking that you have to take somebody else's journey personally. Ultimately, what the messages you received from that person at the time was what you were meant to take. And now they're moving on, and so should you. So those are pretty much my thoughts on the New Age to Jesus trend. Definitely not surprised that, it's been occurring to be. So I just want to leave you guys with a question for this particular podcast. And the question is, well, how do you feel about Jesus? And I want you guys to really sit with yourself and listen to your spirit, and if you wanted to do this as an ancestor meditation, you could. Listen to your ancestors. Listen to what they're telling you. How does your body feel? How does your spirit feel? How does your core feel when you listen to and hear his name, his energy, his history, the things he's done? How do you feel about Jesus? That is the question I'm leaving you guys with. Thank you again for being with me today. I will definitely see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to check out the Patreon, because we're always learning and growing over there. It's patreon.com/TigeraGitana, and I will definitely see you guys next week.